So the next point is also called the toolbar. So right now the toolbar is not visible. So if you want to do it, go to tool and then click on toolbars. You have different options that you can select from. In AutoCAD, let us select one tool that I need to work frequently on. Let us select this draw toolbar. So here you have all the draw commands available in whatever listed here as a toolbar option, so that you can quickly work on. This you can also have as a floating menu, so that if you are working on a bigger project, and if you want to quickly click on the icons, then you can use it. But the recommended practice is you always use the command line to select and draw your drawing. So now let's look into the draw commands that are available to us, and let's start first off with line. But before that, we'll also look at two features that we are going to look into today: erase commands and oops command. We already have drawn some good circles here. Let us try out the erase command here. So for that, you type in erase and then click on enter, and then you can select the objects that you want to delete. So when clicking on these 3 objects, you can see that the select objects, each and every time one has been incremented. In total there are 3 objects, and click on enter to execute the command. Now the objects have been deleted. Now if you want to revert this, we have to type in oops, OOPS. So now it will get back to the command whatever you have already done with. That is, it will erase or roll back what you have done it earlier. There is a very small difference between this undo and oops command. We'll look it for in the next sessions. But this is to start with. But alternatively, if you want to delete, you can also click and drag. Click once and then drag to select the objects, because basically you are using a selection option to if you long press your left mouse button, you are using the lasso button, or if you press on once and then click on the other end again with the left mouse, you are selecting with the fencing option. So now you can alternatively click on delete to delete them. But the background effect is using the erase command to delete it. So this is about the erase and oops command. So now let's look into the line command. So for this course, we'll explore only through the command prompt windows, but parallelly you can also look into this. The line command is available in the ribbon here in draw tab, and also in the draw menu as line. So coming here, you type in L. If you type in L, it will start the line command. So first it is required to specify the first point, and as you could see, there are 2 windows that are hovering nearby. The first one where it is highlighted for entry, and the second one. So basically it mentions the axis what I want to enter. The first one is the X. Let me enter 5 units of X, and if I want to go to the next, I have to click on the tab key, and with the tab key, next I'll enter the next command, that is 10. So it means that I'm fixing the first point with an X axis as 5 and Y axis as 10. I'm clicking on enter now, and hence now the first point has been fixed. Let me zoom using scroll button. So I'm zooming out. You can see here on the X side it has moved for 5 units, and in Y axis it has moved in 10 units. So this is your first point. So now it will ask for the second point. So we have different options. So let me pick a point directly. So I'm graphically picking a point in here. Alternatively, we could have entered the first point also graphically, but let us proceed further. So I'm picking a random point here. So now that first line has been executed. This line command does not terminate until you press the X option for exiting or press enter. So I've used this command menu to press in. So if you can click on this up arrow, you can see the sequence of commands that you have already executed. So this is where you started it. You have pressed the button L and that has prompted the line command. You have specified the first point numerically and the second point you have specified graphically, and to come out of the command you have clicked the X button to exit from the line command. So let us do once more. Let me again click on L. So now I'm getting the line. So now let me pick on a point graphically here and next point here, and then again if I click on enter again, it terminates the command. So you can either terminate the command by clicking on enter or by pressing X to come out of the line command. So now this is basically the line command that you want to go. But here let us also look into the coordinate systems and how we can effectively use to work around your drawing. So let me delete it. So I'll use erase option to delete these two. Done. So let us start a line afresh. Let us draw a rectangle in different methodologies that we look into. So first we'll start off with the coordinate system of absolute. That is, the X and Y axis are going to be defined as an absolute dimension. Let us click on L, line. So I've taken my hand off the mouse, so we'll do it entirely on the keyboard. So the first point, let us assume we start from X of 5 and Y of 5. So let us type as 5, 5. So the first point is plotted. The second point for the length of 10 in the X will be 15, 5, because the Y axis is not going to change. That point is going to remain the same. So on the X side we are incrementing by a unit of 10. So 10 plus 5 is 15 and Y is going to remain the same, so it says 5. So next, as we discussed earlier, the line command keeps on continuing until we manually terminate it. So let us continue drawing it. So on the Y side we are going to increment by 5 because the height is going to be 5. So in X we are going to maintain as same 15, whereas in Y we are going to increment by 5 units. So from the base of 5 it is 5 plus 5, so it is 10. And again going in the next direction, so here again specify your X in absolute. So you are coming back by 10 units. So from 15 you have to come back to 5. So it is 5 in X and Y remains the same as the previous point. So 5, 10. And you have to close back. So entering the original point is 5, 5 and then clicking on enter again to terminate it. So now let us have a look at the commands that we have already entered. So with the line command, with the specifying of L, we have specified the first point at 5, 5 and the next point as 15, 5, the next and 15, 10 and so on. So here you have to see that you have calculated the values and then specified it exactly as it would be drawn on a paper with absolute dimensions. So this type of drawing is called as an absolute coordinate system methodology. So next is the relative rectangular method. To look into that, so let us erase this off and start afresh. So I'm clicking on line command again and specifying the first point as 5, 5. So now the second point, ideally let me say that I have to go only to 10 units in the X direction. So to specify that, I'll use the command of alpha at the rate of, that is shift and pressing 2. So alpha and 10, 0. This means I'm incrementing along the X axis by 10 units, but in Y axis I'm not incrementing any. So you get the same desired effect. Only this thing here you need not worry about the direction. The plus always denotes on the positive side and minus denotes in the negative side. This is what you have to keep a note on, but you can enter incremental units as and when required and need not worry about computation of the exact coordinate position the point is going to fit in. So the next point, let us go. So in x-axis we are not going to increment anything, so it's 0, and in y-axis we are going to increment by 5, so at the rate of 5, and so it should be in the first point. The other rate should always be in the first thing, so at the rate 0, 5. So the next one again at the rate. So now I have to decrement in x by 10 units, so and click entering as minus 10, and y has no change, so 0, and then now coming downwards in y, so x should be 0, so at 0, minus 5. So as you have seen, this is quite faster than the absolute coordinate system because you are specifying only the incremental commands and you are using just the positive or the negative signs to specify the direction. So the positive side in the x-axis will always go from left to right, and in y-axis from bottom to top. If you want to reverse the direction, that is if you want to go from right to left in the pane, so then you have to specify a negative, and again from top to bottom it's again in negative. So this is the relative rectangular coordinate system. So let us come out of the command by clicking on enter. So now let us again expand this window to check again what we have done. So here we have specified L command and specified the first 0.55 and then used @ command to enter the x and y direction in increment. But please note that I have made a mistake here. The alpha, the @ should always be intimated in the front to indicate the system that I'm going to go in relative rectangular coordinates. So resuming here, we have specified again @ of the incremental in a negative direction to go from right to left and then from top to bottom to complete the rectangle. Okay, so that's it. So let us use the erase command to erase the sections. You can have a note at it here. This is not a single object, it's a separate line. So that's why when you use an erase command, you have to select each and every line to delete them. So having selected all the 4 objects, so complete the erase command by clicking on enter or space. Basically enter would work anywhere if you are working in this drawing area, and if you are working in this, then you can specify space, click on space to come out of the command. Okay, so now let us move on to the third methodology of drawing, specifying the coordinate system. So that is called as a relative coordinate system again, but instead of rectangular coordinates, it's called as a polar coordinates. So polar coordinates as in you specify the relative angle to the previous point. So let us demonstrate it. Let us go into the line command again as L, specifying the first point as 5,5, and now the second point. So the rectangle, there is always an absolute degrees to it. So the next point would come at an angle of 0 degrees. Let us show it. So the start point is again is at the rate of, you click on the incremental x, but rather it's not an incremental x or y, it's actually an incremental distance, and based on the angle it will determine in which area it want to go. So the incremental distance is going to be 10, and you have to specify the angle by clicking on the less than button, that is you click on shift plus comma. So by clicking on that, you have the relative, because at represents the relative coordinate and angle represents the polar, so together is relative polar. So now we say that it's going to go on the x direction only, that is from left to right. So you specify the angle of 0, and now again the next one. So the distance, incremental distance is going to be 5, and then the angle is going to be in 90 degree, that is upwards. So you specify as 90. And now again at the rate of Now the distance we require is 10, and now the angle, you have to go from right to left, so it's actually the other side of, so is 180. So going on a polar coordinate system, so its angle is 0, 90, 180 and 270. So we have specified at the rate of 10 less than 180. Then to close it, the relative distance is 5 and the angle is 270. We'll come out of this by pressing space. Yeah, that's it. So this is the relative polar coordinates. Let us look into the command once more. We are specifying the start point as 5 and 5 and specifying the relative distance as at the rate of, please keep a note on here, always the relative carries an alpha at the rate of, and then if you click on the comma, it assumes that you're referring to a relative rectangular system, and if you click on the less than symbol, then the system understands that you want to go to a polar coordinate system. Enter the decrement. Earlier you have to again specify in the relative rectangular system, calculate again the incremental distance is whether in the x or in the y, but in polar coordinate you just have to specify the incremental distance irrespective of the direction. The direction is taken care by the angle. Okay, so this is the relative polar coordinate system. So they also remember the angles are always plotted in the anti-clockwise direction. So the base is 0, going anti-clockwise, 90, 180, 270. So this is how the relative polar coordinate system works. So this sums up the line command. Next, let's look into the circle command. So let us erase this off. So circle is invoked by the command C. So in circle, there are actually 3 types of variants. So let me cancel this. Let's look into the types of circle and then come into. So here you have 3 categories. So one, you indicate the center and then the radius or the diameter. The second part, you specify either 2 diametrically opposite points or through 3 points. So the third method, you specify a circle based on tangent to 2 objects and then specify the radius, and other method is tangent to 3 objects. You can see different use cases from these examples and how you can replicate them in real life situations. So first let's start off with the center radius. Each and every command can be selected from the command menu itself. So let us look directly into the command menu only. So let's invoke by pressing the C command, the circle. So now if you read down the command line, you can see the input that is required. So it says specifies the center point for the circle or specify one of the methods. So let us start off with the first method, that is with the center point, radius or the diameter. So let us specify the center point as 5, 5. And now it's prompt for the circle. So by default the command is radius. And if you want to alternate to the next one, is we have to press in the D. So let us now enter a radius. So let's specify a radius of 1.25 and press on enter. You have your circle. So one more thing, if you hold it on the over on the circle, you can give a object tip menu wherein it shows that this command is a circle and this is by this layer of white, and so this layer is the indication is 0 and the line type is again by layer. So everything has been categorized by layer, but this is the rollover object wherein you can get info about the separate object. So now let's look back into this command once more. So we have invoked the circle command through C, and we have specified the center point and specified the radius as 1.25, and we've got the radius. So I have selected it, deleted it. So now let's go back to the other command. So let's go back to circle, specify the radius as same. Now let's click on D, enter D to change the command from radius to diameter. So now it prompts for the diameter. So if you could notice, each and every time the previous entry point is being taken as reference. The earlier prompt was saying that specify the radius of the circle or diameter, and in angular bracket it shows as 1.25. That was because the previous entry was 1.25, so AutoCAD assumes that the entry can be the same, so it prompts for that. So if you want to use the same dimension, you can click on enter to use it. And here in diameter, when we change it as diameter, it just multiplies by 2 and prompts that do you want the circle diameter to be 2.5? If yes, let's press enter, and so the same circle has been drawn with that diameter of 2.5. You can see here the diameter is specified as 2.5. Alternatively, if you don't want to invoke the previous command but rather enter for yourself, go into the dimension command and type in 2.5. You're free to use in whichever command you want. But if you're doing a replicated task, you can always click on enter to take in the previous dimension or previous entry. So this sums up the first method of drawing a circle, that is by specifying the center point and then specifying either the radius or the diameter. By default, the command is radius. So next, moving on to the next part, that is the 2-point circle. So again, invoke by circle command by C, and then for invoking the 2-point, so let us enter 2P. So which letters or alphabet should you use? It's highlighted by the dark blue color listed here. So by typing that, you are invoking the shortcut to that command. So now let us create the 2-point. So now it is asking the endpoints of the circle diameter. Please keep in note, the first command is specifying the center point and then specifying the radius or diameter. In the second command, it is specifying the points on the circle, and if you are selecting 2 points, it is the end-to-end diameter. So let us say the first point of the diameter is 5,5, and the second point, let's assume the diameter to be 10. So it would be 10,5. So you could see this is the first point 5,5 and this is 10,5. So based on these 2 points in extreme diameter, it has plotted the circle in the 2-point method. So going back here, you can see invoke by C command and specify as 2-point. It is invoking the first endpoint of the circle's diameter and the second endpoint of circle's diameter. You can also note that we are always using the keyboard command, but once you have started drawing images and you want to start from one edge to the other in the drawing, then you can choose very well. For example, if I am drawing a line here, and then I want to continue a circle, so let me come out of this and then specify a circle with the center point as here. Then I could select in. So this green line we'll talk about later. So this snapping points. But see, so based on this, we can also select graphically. The other way of doing it is again picking the center point or whichever is required. And if suppose if I want to draw a circle with the radius of this line, then I can also select this object so that it can draw with this radius. That is, based on the selection, it can use the same dimension to utilize in this. The other way of doing is again typing the diameter radius that you want to do. Yeah, right, sorry, we had talked it earlier. So this is one thing, and okay, the next part is using the 3-point methodology. So we'll go into the circle point again and selecting the 3-point by entering 3P, and now so you can select any 3 points on the screen to select on which one. So based on the direction of the third point, the circle is plotted in whichever direction it wants. So the computer computes circle that passes through all the 3 points. So this is how you plot the 3-point circle. So let's look back into this. So you are specifying the 3p command inside the circle menu to invoke this menu, and use the first point, second point and the third point to draw the 3-point circle.